Hey guys, this is our second video dealing with chapters 11, 12, and 13 in your white laboratory binder for labs 21 through 26. I've already put up one video and I'm going to put them up in order. It was labs 21 for the previous video on YouTube, and then this will be 22, and I'm going to cover them quickly. Okay, just remember, okay? I know that there's some of your classes out there that they teach online. They taught med-term online and they taught med-term in the classroom. So when they got thrown online, they were just able to immediately just pull up the stuff that they already had typed in. They already had their lectures in there. They already had their tests in there. So they were able to flip that. And there was a lot of classes and a lot of instructors out there and professors out there that taught both in classroom and online. But unfortunately, things like nursing, surge tech, PTA, OTA, phlebotomy, laboratory assistant, medical assistant, we don't teach this stuff online. So I know it's taken a little bit longer for me to get this stuff up, but you guys have to understand those 100 question tests. I have to type those in, one question at a time, with each individual possible answer down there. And it takes a long time. All 33 questions on your laboratory test, I have to type them in. Because I don't teach this online, and because really it's not suitable, most of these things aren't suitable to be totally online, then all my lectures have to be recorded. Then I only have one laptop here at the house. I'm lucky that I had a office here, and I had a printer here, and I have a laptop that works pretty good. But it's the only one I have. At work, I have access to more than one computer. I could be doing more than one thing. If I was doing something on one computer and it was having to upload or export or do something like that, I could just get up, and while it's doing that, if it takes 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I could go to another computer and work on something else. I don't have that luxury here at my home. And I know you guys are running into a lot of those same issues. You've got kids at home. You're trying to balance doing your schoolwork with helping them with their schoolwork. And there's all kinds of things that I know that we're all struggling with. And we all need to just take a deep breath, understand that we're going to do all we can for each other. We're in this together, and just try to take a deep breath and be understanding. And it's like I told you, we're getting down near the end. This is going to be fine. And luckily, you have study guides for all your lab tests, including your lab final. You have study guides for all your lecture tests, including your lecture final. You have study material like Appendix A. Okay? You have everything you need at your disposal. You should have a textbook. That's why I told y'all to get the textbook. It is a great companion to go along with all this. It has great pictures, procedures, everything. Okay? So like I said in the previous video, if you look at your tentative course calendar that you had before the COVID-19 break, we were going to have 6 lecture tests and 6 lab quizzes, right? Okay? Well, we're not going to have lecture test number 6, which really, to be honest with you guys, that happens from time to time. We don't always get all 6 of those tests in. Now, having said that, we might not have 6 full lecture tests every semester in and out, because things happen like snow days, or we might not be in school for whatever reason, or we just run out of time because it takes longer to get all this information to you guys that we can. And so sometimes we run out of time because I don't want to pile one test on back of the other one on you. That's just one more thing that you've got to do, or one more, and we can't wait either. Okay, so what we're going to do is in lecture, I'm hoping, and this process is taking longer today. It's Wednesday the 22nd than I had hoped. We're trying to register new students too for the fall, but I'm hoping that today, I know for a fact today I will get up lab quiz number 5 will be online and available to you. You have a couple days. I'm hoping to also get up your lecture number 5. What that means is you guys had those videos up covering those chapters for a couple of weeks now. You knew to read the chapters. You knew to fill out your study guides. It's what we've been doing even when we were in class, okay? So you should be studying for that for lecture test number 5, and the videos for your lab, your lab quiz number 5 are up as well. They've been up, and you guys knew to read those 2 chapters, fill out those study guides, and study for that. So what we're going to do is those will get up today, latest tomorrow. You guys are going to take those over the next couple of days, get them off of your plate, okay? Most of you have sent in all your case studies. If you haven't, don't fret about it. I will send out new due dates today, and then you can send those in. I'm in the process of grading those as well, okay? And then, what you can do is once you've taken lecture test number 5 and lab quiz number 5, you finished your case studies and sent them in, then all you will do is watch these videos, because these videos are for labs 21 through 26, and it's for chapters 11, 12, and 13. Now, that would be for lab quiz number 6. You will not have lab quiz number 6, okay? But I want you to watch the videos. I want you to read those chapters in your white binder, fill out your study guides, and study for them. And then all you will have left to do after you take lab quiz number 5 and lecture number 5 is to study the material for the two tests you won't take. One would be the lecture test number 6 and lab quiz number 6. You won't take either one of those tests, but I will have all the material up for you. So once you take the 2 5s, then all you will have to do is study the material for those last few chapters in both lecture and lab, and then start studying your study guides for both your lecture and lab final into your lab. And we're going to try to stick with the tentative course calendar as far as, because in the tentative course calendar has your comprehensive lecture final exam being May the 5th. I'm going to double check that today, make sure that's on. If that's on, that's when we're going to have it, and I'll know that today for you. And then the lab final is on April the 23rd, which will be tomorrow. And of course, we're not going to do it tomorrow. But I will figure out a date. Probably on Thursday, you guys will know the date of your lab final. Okay? And I will give you plenty of time to study for it and plenty of time to take it. All is going to be well. Okay? So now, let's do this. Let me get through these slides quickly, dealing with worksheet 22A, but I want y'all to remember the other, there's things that I need to do to help you guys, and I'm doing all I can to get these tests typed in, get these lectures done, get them up, be as lenient, be as understanding as I can, trying to help y'all in any way I can so that y'all don't get an eye in lab, do whatever I need to do. What I need you to do on your part is you need to be practicing at home, because if you're not right now, if you have not been throughout this process, it's going to be harder on you when you go to clinicals. You need to be practicing tying the tourniquet. You're in your house, practice on your children, practice on your significant other, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whomever. Find somebody to practice doing your introduction, your identification, your medical interview, tying your tourniquet. You have those red bags at home. Get them out, practice them. Pull your white light binder out. And not only when you're reading chapters 11, 12, and 13 in your white lab binder, turn to these labs. I've told y'all this before in lab. It goes from the first thing that you do down to the last thing that you do. If you look on page 183, it should be the same in your white lab binder as mine. If not, it's pretty close. But that's worksheet 21A. It's venipuncture 4 tubes, teacher assisted. Okay, if you look at that one, number 1, what does it say? Wash hands, select the appropriate PPE, right? It goes down, clean work area, restock tray, perform 3-point and quality assurance. Okay, it goes all the way down to your post-analytical phase where it talks about demonstrating proper disposal of waste. You guys need to be looking over this. Take 10 or 15 minutes out of your day. Go through this. Go over it. Look through these labs. Go over them. Visualize in your head what you're doing, how you would do it. Get your supplies out of your red backpack. Practice tying tourniquets. You're going to be as good as the work you put in. If you guys take the time to practice this stuff at home, go over these worksheets in your mind, visualize what you're doing, watch YouTube videos, take it on yourself to do all you can to stay as up to date as you can with what's going on in these labs, so that maybe we'll be able to do that boot camp. We can get into the lab. Y'all can practice drawing blood. You can practice doing some of these things so that when you go to clinicals and you're at Willis-Knighton or the VA or Ochsner's, you will look like you know what you're doing. And the way you look like you know what you're doing is practice, practice, practice. Even if you're not able to do it for real, if you will go over these things in your head, step by step by step, and say, okay, I do this, I do that, tie the tourniquet, and if you would practice tying the tourniquet, if you will pull out that stuff out of your backpack, put it together, hold it in your hand. Remember how I told y'all? Visualize what you're doing, okay? It is going to be nothing but a help to you. And again, you are going to be as successful as the amount of work you are willing to put in to get this done. Now I'm going to go through these quickly because this one is 22A, which is on specimen processing, which should be on page 185 or close in your white lab binder. So you should be watching these videos, going over this stuff, practicing this stuff at home. You need to be reading chapters 11, 12, and 13, filling out your study guides, because your last two tests in both lab and lecture will be up today. Hopefully, both of them will be up today. Lace, it'll be up tomorrow. Y'all can take those, get 5 off your plate, move on to knowing the information for 6. You won't have tests in it either. Start studying for your final, okay? And I'm going to get you updated dates on your lab final, when it will be. I'm going to double check and make sure we're still on track for that day in May for your lecture final. And then I'm also going to give you updated dates on the rest of your... sorry about that. Rest of your case studies, if you haven't already turned them in, because a lot of people have already turned in all of them, which that's great. I'm in the process of, like I said, I'm in the process of grading those now. Okay, like I said, I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. So you know that in a hospital lab, they have a specimen processing area where typically laboratory assistants work in there, which laboratory assistants are usually phlebotomists who went on to get some additional certification to become a laboratory assistant. They pay a little bit more money for that, especially at Willis-Knighton. And there's an area in that hospital set up for them to process those specimens and deliver them to the lab that they go to. Now, I'm going to go through this stuff relatively quickly, but you guys can pause it and go through it. And remember to read your chapters 11, 12, and 13 and fill out those study guides at the end of those. So reference labs. We know that if there's tests that our physician's office or our outpatient facility or even some hospital labs don't do, then they're going to be packaged up and sent off to the reference lab, okay? And that's another job that would be performed in that specimen processing area. Or if you worked in a small physician's office and they did a lot of point of care testing there and some CLIA wave testing, but they also sent a lot of stuff off to reference labs, even phlebotomists would need to be trained by somebody there on exactly how to handle this, but you would do some of this work. So this is important that you understand how this whole process is done, not only for your safety, to make sure that you're doing it in a way so you don't open yourself up to being infected with HIV, hepatitis, or other viruses or bacteria that can make you sick, right? Also, you want to make sure you're doing your job in a way to make sure that you're making sure that this specimen is correct, and that when you take that aliquot off and put it into something else, you're making sure that the patient flow is the same. And in other words, you want to make sure that that specimen that gets tested is the correct specimen for the correct patient, okay? So this is a very, very important job, okay? And we need to remember, you know, that those tubes need to be delivered by whomever collected them to that laboratory within 45 minutes of being collected, and they need to be spun down within 2 hours. So why must a tube without anticoagulant be allowed to clot before you spin it down. Okay? And we've talked about this. There's fibrin in there. It's kind of a glue, sticky mess, right? And it clumps up all that stuff together and forms that big, nasty clot that you see right there on those top two pictures over to the left. That's that clot. It's down in the bottom. So if you look over to the right, that red down in the bottom is that big clot, and all that fibrin is all sticky in there. So then you're able to take a pipette like that laboratory assistant is doing in the picture below, behind her plexiglass shield to make sure she's protecting herself. She can pipette that aliquot of serum off that tube into another tube and then deliver that tube to the section of the lab it needs to go to. Now, if it didn't clot properly and you spun it down, then you would not be able to get that serum off because all that fibrin would still be in there, and you'd go and it'd be like Jell-O. You couldn't get it out of there, okay? All right, so you always want to make sure that these tubes are allowed to clot, and you make sure they're clotted before you spin them down. Okay, here's a picture. You can pause it and take a look at it of a typical hospital. This looks like kind of maybe a smaller or mid-sized hospital laboratory, and you see that specimen processing area there that probably a lab assistant is working there, and there's some racks that probably have some type of goggles or face shields or plexiglass, along with a centrifuge for you to be able to spin those specimens down and take them to the department they need to go to. And then you see chemistry, hematology, all the way back to blood bank. Also, here's another of them. It looks like a larger hospital laboratory, but you see it's sectioned off, and those departments are usually micro, blood bank, chemistry, and all that. And they'll have a specimen processing area as well. And you see those computer screens there, and you see the specimens that's come in. And a lot of times they will do all this stuff through the computer. It's not a lot of paper anymore, and especially in big hospital labs. So if we would have been in lab, what I would have gotten you guys to do is take one tube, okay? And you would have taken your specimen forms. You would have had a specimen processing form, which is on 22A. It's 187, should be page 187. And one of the very important jobs of a specimen processor is to be able to analyze this specimen. So when they get that specimen down, you see those ladies in that top picture with their face shields on and their paperwork. They're processing these specimens, right? And what they're looking for is, was the tube labeled correctly? Because if not, then they do not need to accept that specimen, right? You're going to accept or reject it, right? And get it recollected. Was the correct color top tube drawn for the tests that were ordered? Was the tube used to collect the blood in date and not expired? You're another stop check. As a phlebotomist, and you know I teach you this in lab, you need to check your tray every day, right? Make sure you're going to be proactive. You want to be the best phlebotomist you can be. And part of that is being prepared. Making sure that you have your markers in your pocket, right? Making sure that your tray is clean and sanitized and stocked with everything you would need when you're up there on that floor. You don't want to get caught up there needing something, needing a syringe or needing some syringe needles or needing something, and you don't have it. You also want to make sure that everything is working properly and not expired, right? But another person that checks that, just in case you were to miss it, would be the lab assistant that was in the specimen processing area. Then she's going to make sure that that tube got down there within that 45 minutes. She's going to make sure that she has enough time to spin it down within 2 hours of it being drawn. Once it's spun down, she's going to make sure that it's not hemolyzed or shows any kind of lipemia, turbidity, ichorous, anything like that. Then she's going to make the decision, is this a good specimen that I can now pipette safely and aliquot off, put it into a transfer tube, and then deliver it to the part of the lab that it needs to go to. So you would make that decision, and then you would move from there. Okay, so this is all in there, okay? Read over this. Like I told you, it's going to be as much work as you want to put in. If you want to be the best phlebotomist you can be, if you want to really impress those people at your clinical site so that they will offer you a job, then you have to put in the hours needed to go over this stuff in your lab binder. Read it, go over it step by step. Visualize yourself doing it in your head. Go over it, act it out, tie that tourniquet on someone, practice your 3 points. Practice, practice, practice. Go over it, okay? So you can pause this and go back over this yourself. Visualize you doing it. Visualize you getting your tube and looking at it to see if it's labeled correctly. What do we put on there? What's in the basic 6? You guys need to be practicing writing that basic 6 out. Writing that basic 6 out with that military time, right? Was the correct color top tube drawn? Go to Appendix A. You need to be studying Appendix A for your final for sure, for all your lab tests, right? You needed to be looking at Appendix A so that you can remember what test goes in what tube and what special handling needs to be done. Okay, this is still going over this process that we would have done while we were in there. Make sure that you pause this, read through it, and go through it in your mind as to what you would be doing. Okay, we always want to spin down our tubes for 10 to 15 minutes. Most centrifuges have a timer built into them. If not, you would want to set a timer for yourself, right? Okay, if you're going to walk off, a lot of times if I was trying to multitask, which to be a good lab tech, to be a good phlebotomist, to really be good at anything, you want to learn to multitask as best you can. You can always set another one of those little portable timers for 15 minutes, stick it in your lab coat pocket, walk off to do whatever you do. When it goes off, it'll remind you to go back to that centrifuge and get that out. We always want to do calibrations, optic checks, maintenance, controls on everything, right? Whether kits, machinery, everything. And we would want to maintenance these centrifuges and make sure that they're spinning at 35 to 4,500 RPMs, okay? You want to always balance your tubes out. You want to make sure they're approximately the same size tube. They need to be the same kind of tube, okay? If it's a 10 ml tube, you want another 10 ml tube, right? They need to have the same amount of liquid in both of them. Set them directly across from each other because they need to be balanced out. So pause this slide, as you should all of them. Read through this so that you will understand and visualize what you're doing. So once it's been spun down, okay, and you would if it doesn't need to be spun down, sorry, like blood bank and hematology specimens, as we know in hematology they do complete blood counts. Those are done on whole blood, so you don't need to spin those down. So you could put all your stuff in the centrifuge that needs to be spun down, take your stuff that doesn't need to be spun down, check it though, make sure that it's 100% full, it's been labeled properly, it got down there in the right amount of time, right? That it's in the right tube. Once you know that, then you can take that specimen over to hematology, right? You always enter all your information for each tube in the master laboratory log, which is usually kept in a computer, okay? And then once it's the centrifuge stops and you take them out, you want to be very careful, right? Because if that gel's not in there and that gel didn't move up to separate the serum from the cells, if you tilt that tube, it's going to mix that back up, and now you're going to have to put them back in there and spin it down again. And that's not helping your turnaround time at all, right? So then what you would do is, just like this picture shows, very gently take it out of that centrifuge, like the lady on the top. Then our laboratory assistant's going to get her pipette and her tube, and from behind her plexiglass safety shield, she's going to take pipette off aliquot of our serum or plasma and put it into a transfer tube, okay? Now, there's also plunger type filters that you can put down in there, and you slide that plunger down into your tube, and you want to leave a little bit of an air gap between stop, and then you pull up just a little bit. It causes a seal, and then that way your serum is off your plasma. And y'all might could find a really good YouTube video out there about plunger type filters so that you can get kind of a look at that and see what it looks like. It's a really neat, we used a lot of them in the lab I worked in, okay? So once you spin it down, carefully get it off. You carefully follow all protocol to get you pipette your sample off and put it in your transfer tube. Then you're going to label your transfer tube. First, you're going to copy exactly your basic 6 from the original tube onto your transfer tube. Skip a line, then write the date and your initials. Guys, go over this. Make sure you understand what goes on that transfer tube. Basic 6 from the original tube, separate line, then the date and your initials. Okay? Then you would deliver your transfer tube to the correct section of the lab that it goes to. If we would have been in lab, I would have been looking to make sure that you did that make sure that you had copied directly exactly what the basic 6 was from the original tube. You skipped a line, put the date and your initials, okay? So here is worksheet number 22B. And you guys, like I said, it's going to be the amount of work you want to put in. But if you'll go to page 189 and start at number 1 with wash hands and select appropriate PPE, and go all the way down to number 20, which is your post-analytical phase that talks about demonstrating proper disposal of waste materials, you will start going over and over and over this, practicing in your head, go through it, because also it shows you the difference between 11, 12, and 13 for your winged infusion set with Vacutainer holder, or winged infusion set with a syringe, which is 11, 12, and 13. Go over it. Talk out loud to yourself. See if you can call up one of your lab partners. Talk it over with them. Remember the things that we do with the syringe versus a holder, okay? You guys go over this stuff, okay? Including number 16 where it says properly labeled tubes. You don't want to allow your patient to get away before you label your tube. Let your patient look at it to verify that that's the correct name and date of birth. Because the most important job you do is to properly ID your patient. Okay? So, y'all pause this, read over it, make sure you understand about a PT, INR, and factor assay. That, you know, what section of the lab does it go to? What are the best tubes? Remember, if you're using that winged infusion set, okay, what are you needing to do when you're talking about a PT and INR? You guys need to make sure you understand that. Remember, we have discard tubes, right? Why do we draw a discard tube when we're talking about a PT, PTT? Okay? What are the reasons we would do it? One, if we're using a winged infusion set, we have to use a discard tube. What's our discard tube? A plain red top, right? Or if more than one test is ordered. If they ordered a PT and a CBC, if they ordered a PT and a chem panel, electrolyte panel, if they ordered that PT with any other test, we must draw a discard tube. Okay, and as with everything else, this is what we would do at the end. And again, I know I'm saying this over and over again, but I hope this is hitting home to y'all. I hope this has been an eye-opening situation where you understand that disposing of your waste properly is vitally important. Think before you toss. If you throw something with blood and body fluids into a regular trash can and somebody from environmental services, somebody's child, somebody's family member were to touch that and become sick with a virus, a bacteria, a parasite, HIV, hepatitis, there is a ton of stuff out there in blood and body fluids that can make you sick. That's why we must use that 10% bleach to clean our tray, clean the bottom of our tray, clean our chair that our patient sits in. That's why I did not want that lab coat rattling around in the bottom of your red bag. That's why I made it a priority for you guys to put your lab coat in a plastic bag. This is why I talked about not taking this stuff home to your family. And after you've done all that, you remove your gloves in the way that you were taught properly so that they can go in the regular trash. Okay, guys, I'm going to get this video up. And then I'm going to finish out the rest of these labs just to have some basic information up that y'all can look at. But remember, you're going to do as well as the amount of work you're willing to put in. I know this is hard. I know it's stressful. It is on all of us. But we are going to buckle down. We're going to get this stuff done. And we're going to be successful. So you guys hang in there. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please reach out to me by email, okay? Hang in there. See you on the next video.